Today's project is this cute bat sign that can be hung either on the outside of the dollhouse or someplace inside the dollhouse. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy our bat sign is to make. Alright, so we are making a bat wall hanging. These are the pieces. Now there is in the blog post, the link to my blog for the video is always in the video description. In the blog post for today's video, there is a link to download the pattern, and I'm providing the pattern to you in two ways. A PDF if you're going to hand cut, and also a PNG file with sizing directions if you're using something like a Cricut or a Silhouette cutter. So after you cut your pattern out, you'll have these 9 pieces, 3 big circles, 3 rings, and 3 bats. Now there'll also be 3 smaller circles inside of the rings. Those are meant to be discarded. Right, so let's go ahead and glue our pieces together. That's our first step. And this is just cut from regular medium weight cardstock like you buy at the craft store in those big packages. I've got some tacky glue, and I've put it kind of off to the side. And yeah, you can kind of sort of see it maybe. So don't use too much glue, just enough. Spread it on one surface. And with the bats, I recommend taking a pencil and marking one side. I put a pencil mark on the back side of each bat, because they don't match up if they're reversed. They're just a little bit off. I couldn't get them exactly symmetrical, and on those little guys it really, really shows if you're off. So, all right. I'm gonna do that. Now I prefer tacky glue over a glue stick. I've never really had good luck with glue sticks holding long term. If you do, that's great. Go ahead and use that. I just prefer a really thick tacky glue because I think for me it gives a much better bond and a much longer lasting bond. And the thicker glues won't warp your paper like the thin ones will. All right, now this unit, this is our background, and that's going to sit off to the side and dry. Now we're going to do, my fingers are all sticky, our rings. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to spread some glue on the back of this, the back one. And we're going to glue all 3 layers of all 3 sets together. And then that glue needs to dry because we want this to really stay together. That makes for a nice strong bond and a nice strong sign for our wall. Those on there. And do your best as you're going to even those edges up. Now, my little bats. And try and get the glue, by the time you get your pieces stuck together, you'll want the glue to go all the way to the edges of each piece. You don't want these coming apart once you get them put into your sign. And if you haven't used cardstock this way, I think you'll be surprised how strong it does get. When you glue 3 layers seems to be the magic formula for a lot of things. All right. All right, those all need to get completely dry, and when they're completely dry, I'll come back and we will start our painting. All right, my glue has dried and we're going to set the solid circle off to the side. We're going to paint these two first because they're going to both be painted black. All my paints today were provided to me by Plaid for use in making videos for you guys. So let's start with the bat. And we're going to dip our brush in and we're going to paint. I like to start with the edges first because that way I can kind of hold on to the bat a little bit. And since there's no wet paint or anything, I'm dipping into the lid. I don't normally do that unless I'm positive I'm not going to be transferring anything into my paints. I'll try not to have my hair make an appearance in today's video. All right, now, really important that you get those edges, and we are going to check that again later. Now, our ring, we are going to paint the inside edge. We're not going to worry about the outside edge of this one. We're going to paint the inside edge. And again, we'll need to make sure that that is completely covered because if those edges, the inside of this and the edges of that bat, if there's any white, it's really going to show in our project when it's done. If you've got any big globs of paint, like I don't know if the camera picked up, but I had a glob there. I've got one little white spot there. When the paint dries, I will go back through and make sure that all of those areas are covered. So let me set this off to the side. I need to go wash my brush out. But first, I'm going to move this forward. I am going to turn the camera off and grab my wet wipes. All right, now we are going to paint this solid disc, and I have two colors of paint. I have Moon Yellow and I have Vivid Orange. They're both from Folk Art. These happen to be multi-surface paints. It doesn't matter. I've got a little bit of each put out right next to each other, and I have a brush. You need a brush that's kind of wide and has a nice flat end on it for what we're going to do. And I've got a little bit of double-sided tape here. I'm hoping I can hold my, let's get this a little closer to where you can see it. Hoping I can hold this down because I can't really use my fingers to hold this down. Now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to go through my paints like that. Orange to the outside, a little more orange. Now I'm going to dip it back in and turn around again so the orange is towards the outside. But that gives this really pretty blend of orange to yellow for our background. And now I'm going to grab, I'll use the end of my toothpick. I want to get that pool of paint off of there. Now our paint needs to dry, and when this is dry, we can do some assembly, and then we'll finish our painting. All right, my paint is all dry, so now we're going to glue these pieces together. So I'm going to put out a little more glue on my tray. Because again, we just want a little bit. I'm going to put on the back of this ring. I'm trying to be as neat as possible and still get pretty good coverage, because if you've got a nice even layer of glue, it will adhere very nicely and not split apart. And don't worry if the outside edge is all colored, because we're going to paint the outside edge here in a few minutes. Go ahead and get that pushed down. I'm going to use my fingernail, make sure there's no glue oozing out there. And now our little bat. First I'm going to decide, I'm going to put my bat like this. So you can orient him any way you want. I've already double checked that there's paint on all the edges and that paint is dry. If the paint, excuse me, if the paint is still wet when you put the glue on, you risk having a black smear or a smear of whatever color paint you have. Now he is designed to fit just inside that ring. If he's cut out according to my pattern and really carefully, he will fit perfectly. All right, we're going to let this glue all dry. When this is dry, we'll do the touch-up on finish the black paint and then touch up any spots we need to on the front. So I'll be right back. All right, my glue has dried, so we are going to go ahead. I'm taking a very small brush. And I'm going to use out of the lid again because I think everything is dry. I think it'll be okay. I'm going to very carefully, yeah, I'm under camera, go around this outside edge. Try and work from the back. I find if I hold this with the back towards my brush, I usually am less apt to have a accident and get paint on the front. But do be careful because this is a really not fun time to accidentally get a big black line on the front of your sign, because I did that on one I made earlier today. I was putting together a prototype to make sure my pattern all fit, and I managed to put a black line all the way through my pretty background. Almost around, because I do want to touch up the front before I turn the camera off. Now you might be wondering, if you haven't watched this process before, why we're painting instead of using colored paper. I get asked that quite often when I do it this way. I find that paint seems to fade less over time, and also it covers up the fact that we have multiple layers of paper, and it kind of keeps the paper together in addition to the glue. Now if you really don't like the way the back looks messy, you could go back when this is all dry and paint the back with white or any other color. Got a few, just little spots. I think they were from when I was putting on the glue. All right, we're going to let that dry. When that dries, we'll come back. We'll give it a really thin coat of Mod Podge, and then we can see how it looks. So I'll be right back. All right, I think my paint is dry, so I am going to, and you can see the back is kind of messy, so I may or may not paint that white later. I have a craft stick, and it's got some of that blue tack stuff on it. I'm going to carefully put this on here. This way I don't have to hold it. And I have put some matte Mod Podge out on my work tile, just in case there's a little bit of paint or something that's not dry, because I am trying to rush this so I can get it done. I want to get the video finished, and I also want to see how this is going to look when it's done. I'm really happy with how this looks so far. So I am going to continue to coat this with the Mod Podge. I'm not going to put a really thick coat on. I never put very thick coat of Mod Podge on because it does tend to remain tacky when you do that. So I'm going to put a nice thin, even coat, trying to get rid of any puddles. And then when it's dry, we will take a look at this, probably hanging on the front wall of the dollhouse. So I'll be back when this is dry. All right, there's our new bat sign in place on the front wall of the dollhouse. Be sure and check the blog post so you can get the link for the pattern to create the sign for yourself. Remember, it's both a PDF for hand cutting and a PNG with instructions to size it to use for your Cricut or other electronic cutting machine. I hope you enjoyed today's project. If you did, be sure and hit the like button. Let me know what kind of projects you'd like to see in future videos. If you enjoy my content and haven't subscribed, I encourage you to hit the subscription button and the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.